The massive ships came out of nowhere. They appeared in Earth's solar system like dark shadows against the stars. Admiral Crickstall stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue and green planet that hung in space before them. His 6 arms moved across the control panels as his large yellow eyes studied the readings. "What do we have, Commander?" Crickstall asked in his deep voice. His skin was purple and covered in small scales that caught the light from the ship's displays. "Commander." Zektar looked up from his station. "The planet shows signs of life, Admiral, but their technology is very basic. We see metal flying machines in their atmosphere, some kind of fuel-burning rockets. A few small satellites around their world." Crickstall made a sound that was like laughter. "Another primitive world. This will be easy." He had conquered 23 planets for the Zephyrian Empire. This little blue world would be number 20-4. The Zephyrian fleet was huge. 50 ships hung in the darkness of space. Each one was 3 miles long and covered in weapons. The metal hulls were black and smooth. Red lights blinked along their sides like angry eyes. Far below on Earth, Jake Morrison was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee at NASA Mission Control in Houston. It was late at night and most of the staff had gone home. Jake was the night director watching over the space tracking systems. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. The computer screen in front of him suddenly filled with red warnings. Jake nearly dropped his coffee. The numbers on the screen made no sense. 50 large objects had just appeared near Jupiter. They were moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. "No way," Jake whispered. He ran the scan again. The same results came back. Whatever was out there was huge and fast and definitely not natural. Jake grabbed his phone and called his boss. Then he called the Pentagon. Within minutes, phones were ringing all over Washington, D.C. President Lisa Carter was asleep when her phone rang. She was a strong woman in her 50s with short brown hair. She had been president for 2 years, but nothing had prepared her for this call. "Madam President," came the voice of her chief of staff. "You need to get to the White House situation. Room right now, we have a situation." 20 minutes later, President Carter sat at a long table surrounded by her top advisors. Defense Secretary Ryan Walsh was there, along with General Amy Foster and several others. On the big screen at the front of the room, they could see images from NASA's telescopes. "Tell me what we're looking at," President Carter said. Jake Morrison's face appeared on another screen. He looked nervous. "Madam President, we have 50 large objects moving toward Earth. They're about the size of aircraft carriers, but they're in space. They'll reach Earth in about 6 hours. Are they meteoroids?" "Space debris?" asked General Foster. "No, ma'am," Jake replied. "They're under power. They're slowing down as they approach." "These are ships." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the images on the screen. The objects were clearly artificial. They had smooth surfaces and what looked like engines glowing at the back. "How long until they arrive?" President Carter asked. 5 hours and 37 minutes, Madam President." President Carter looked around the room. "I want every world leader contacted. Get me the Prime Minister of Britain, the President of France, everyone. If these are alien ships, this affects the whole planet." Defense Secretary Walsh leaned forward. "What about our military? Should we prepare for attack?" "What can we do against ships that big?" President Carter asked. "Our best. Fighters would be like mosquitoes against elephants." On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Crickstall watched Earth grow larger on his screen. His fleet had slowed to a crawl as they approached the planet. Standard procedure was to study the target before making contact. "What are their communications?" "Tell us," Crickstall asked. "They use radio waves, Admiral." "Very basic. We can understand their languages now." "They have many different groups on their planet. No single government controls them all," Crickstall nodded. "Perfect. Divided worlds are always easier to conquer." "What about their military?" "Primitive weapons. They still use chemical explosives. Some nuclear devices, but nothing that can threaten." "Our ships? Their space capability is almost nothing. A few small stations around their planet." "Any signs they know we're coming?" "Yes, Admiral. Their scanning devices have detected us. Their leaders are talking to each other. They seem worried. Crystal smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Good. Fear makes them more likely to surrender without a fight. Back on Earth, President Carter was on a video call with world leaders. Prime Minister Kate Williams from Britain looked serious on her screen. So did Chancellor Ben Schmidt from Germany and President Chun Wei from China. We need to present a united front, President Carter said. Whatever these beings want, we should speak with one voice. But what if they want to conquer us? Asked Prime Minister Williams. What if they see us as a threat? Look at their ships, said Chancellor Schmidt. We are not a threat to them. We are insects compared to their technology. The alien ships took positions around Earth. They didn't hide. Anyone with a telescope could see them hanging in space like giant metal clouds. News reports started spreading across the planet. People looked up at the sky and wondered what would happen next. Admiral Crystal chose his landing site carefully. The capital of the most powerful nation would be best. His ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its shields glowing bright blue. The ship was so large it cast shadows over the city of Washington, D.C. People ran in the streets. Some screamed. Others just stood and stared as the massive alien ship settled in the open area near the Washington Monument. The ground shook from its weight. A ramp lowered from the ship's belly. Admiral Crystal walked down with 10 of his warriors. They were all tall and purple, wearing armor that looked like it was made of liquid metal. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. President Carter and her security team waited behind bulletproof barriers. The two groups faced each other across the empty space. The alien admiral stepped forward. I am Admiral Crystal of the Zephyrian Empire. His voice boomed across the area. A small device on his chest translated his words into English. Your primitive world is now under our control. You will surrender your weapons and your governments. You will serve the Empire, or you will be destroyed. President Carter stepped forward, her heart pounding. I am President Carter. I speak for the people of Earth. We are a peaceful species. We mean you no harm. Crystal made his laughing sound again. Harm? You could not harm us if you tried. Your weapons are toys. Your technology is centuries behind ours. You have two choices, serve us or die. The Admiral looked around at the primitive buildings and vehicles. These humans were like all the other species the Empire had conquered. Weak and backward. This would be over in days, maybe hours. President Carter looked up at the massive ship above them. She thought about her daughter and grandchildren. She thought about all the people on Earth looking to her for protection. Her voice was steady. When she spoke, we need time to discuss your offer. You have 24 hours, Crystal said. Then you will give us your answer. Image description for Leonardo AI. A massive alien spaceship hovering over Washington, D.C., casting shadows over the White House and Washington Monument. The ship is sleek, black, and 3 miles long with glowing red lights along its hull. Below, on the ground, a tall, purple-skinned alien admiral with 6 arms and yellow eyes stands with armored alien warriors facing human officials near government buildings. The scene is dramatic with a gray sky and crowds of people visible in the background. President Lisa Carter stood at the podium in the White House press room. Cameras from around the world pointed at her. Her hands shook slightly as she held the speech, but her voice was strong and clear. My fellow Americans and citizens of the world, she began. After careful consideration with world leaders, we have decided to accept the terms offered by the Zephyrian Empire. We choose peace over destruction. We choose to live rather than fight a war we cannot win. The room exploded with questions from reporters. Outside, people in the streets looked shocked. Some cried. Others shouted in anger. But President Carter had made the choice that would save billions of lives. Or so it seemed. Admiral Crystal watched the broadcast from his command ship. He was pleased. These humans were smarter than some species he had conquered. They knew when they were beaten. This would make everything much easier. Begin establishing our bases, Crystal ordered. I want control centers in every major population area. These humans will need watching until they learn their place. But 3 floors below the White House, in a room that did not appear on any building plans, President Carter was having a very different meeting. Prime Minister Kate Williams appeared on a secure video screen. So did Chancellor Ben Schmidt and President Chin Wei. The room was lined with metal that blocked all signals. No alien technology could listen in here. The plan is working, President Carter said quietly. They believe we have surrendered. How are things in your countries? The same, said Prime Minister Williams. My people are angry, but they understand. The aliens are setting up their bases in London. They think we are defeated, Chancellor Schmidt nodded. Our resistance networks are already moving underground. The aliens have no idea what they have walked into. President Chun Wei smiled coldly. My generals are ready. The sleeping dragon is about to wake up. In a small town in Colorado, Sam Rodriguez loaded supplies into the back of his truck. Sam was a former Special Forces soldier who had fought in 3 wars. He was built like a tank, with scars on his arms and a face that had seen too much violence. But his eyes were sharp and intelligent. You sure about this, Sam? Asked his partner, Dr. Mary Collins. Mary was a scientist who had worked for the government for 15 years. She was small and quiet, but her mind was like a computer. She could figure out how anything worked just by looking at it. I'm sure, Sam said. These aliens think they've won. Time to show them they're wrong. Sam and Mary were not alone. All across America, small groups of people were meeting in secret. There were soldiers and scientists, mechanics and teachers, farmers and computer programmers. They all had one thing in common. They knew the truth about Earth's real capabilities. The Zephyrians began building their bases with confidence. They put one in New York City, another in Los Angeles. They built them in London and Paris and Tokyo. Each base was a tall tower made of the same black metal as their ships. Red lights blinked at the top like evil eyes watching the humans below. Commander Velthara was in charge of the North American bases. She was smaller than Admiral Crickstall, with green skin instead of purple. Her job was to watch the humans and make sure they stayed obedient. The humans are cooperating, she reported to the Admiral. They bring us food and supplies as ordered. Their leaders ask permission before making any decisions. This conquest is proceeding perfectly, but strange things started happening. A patrol of Zephyrian soldiers went missing near Denver. Their communication devices went silent. When a search team found them 3 days later, they were unconscious and their weapons were gone. Probably human criminals, Commander Velthara told her staff. These primitives still have lawless elements. Nothing to worry about? Another patrol disappeared near Seattle. Then another near Miami. Each time the soldiers were found alive but unconscious. Their weapons and equipment were always missing. In the mountains of Montana, Commander Alex Turner was very busy. Alex was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes like steel. She wore a uniform that no one on Earth was supposed to know existed. On her shoulder was a patch showing a star surrounded by 3 planets. Alex stood in a command center carved deep into the mountain. The room was filled with screens and computers that looked nothing like Earth's normal technology. The walls were lined with a metal that seemed to absorb light. Status report, Alex ordered. Lieutenant Dan Brooks looked up from his computer. All teams are in position, Commander. The alien bases are being monitored. We've collected enough of their equipment to begin analysis. Good. What about the fleet? Ships 7 through 15 are ready to deploy. The rest are still in final preparation. Alex nodded. She walked to a massive screen that showed the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of the Zephyrian ships. But there were other dots on the screen. Blue dots that the aliens could not see. Dr. Mary Collins worked in a hidden laboratory beneath an old farm in Kansas. The lab was bigger than most shopping centers, but it was completely underground. No satellites could see it. No alien scanners could detect it. Mary studied the Zephyrian weapons that Sam's teams had collected. She smiled as she worked. These aliens thought their technology was so advanced. They had no idea what humans were really capable of. Interesting, Mary said to her assistant, Dr. Bob Carter. Their energy weapons use a particle beam system. Very advanced for most species, but we solved this problem 30 years ago. Can we defend against them? Bob asked. Defend? Bob, we can do better than defend. We can improve their designs and use them against their creators. Sam Rodriguez was leading another mission that night. His team moved through the forest outside Chicago. Like ghosts? They wore suits that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. Their weapons made no sound when they fired. The Zephyrian patrol never saw them coming. One moment, the aliens were walking through the trees. The next moment, they were on the ground, unconscious. Sam's team took their weapons and communication devices, then disappeared back into the forest. Alpha team to base, Sam whispered into his radio. Package collected, moving to extraction point. Copy that, Alpha team, came the reply. Transport is waiting. Admiral Crickstall was starting to get concerned. Too many patrols were going missing. The humans claimed they knew nothing about it. But something was wrong. Commander Valthara, he called. I want a full security review. These disappearances are not random. Yes, Admiral. Should we increase patrols? Double them. And use our best surveillance equipment. I want to know what's happening to our soldiers. But the Zephyrians had no idea what they were really dealing with. They thought they had conquered a primitive world. They believed the humans were helpless and defeated. They were wrong. In the hidden command center, Alex Turner watched reports coming in from around the world. Similar operations were happening everywhere. The aliens were losing equipment and soldiers, but they still thought they were in control. Phase 1 is complete, Alex announced to her staff. Begin Phase 2 preparations. On her screen, more blue dots appeared in the solar system. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid belts and behind moons were starting to move. The real human fleet was waking up. President Carter appeared on television again the next morning. She looked tired and defeated as she announced new cooperation agreements with the aliens. But her eyes contained a message that only certain people would understand. The message was simple. Get ready. The Zephyrians watched the broadcast and felt satisfied. These humans knew their place. This conquest was going exactly as planned. They had no idea that they had walked into the most elaborate trap in galactic history. Image. Description for Leonardo AI. Underground command center carved into a mountain with advanced technology screens. And computers showing a solar system map with red and blue dots marking ship positions. A tall woman in a futuristic military uniform with short black hair stands before the displays. The scene shows hidden human technology far more advanced than what aliens observed on Earth's surface, with sleek metal walls and holographic displays glowing in the darkness. The explosion lit up the night sky over Nevada like a second sun. The Zephyrian supply depot, which had been there just moments before, was now a crater half a mile wide. Pieces of alien metal rained down across the desert. Commander, Valthara stared at the destruction through her ship's cameras. This was not possible. The humans had no weapons that could cause this much damage. Their nuclear devices were primitive and crude. This explosion was something else entirely. How many humans were involved in the attack? She asked her intelligence. Officer, our sensors detected only 12, Commander. They approached on foot, no vehicles, no aircraft. 12 humans destroyed our largest supply base? Valthara's voice was sharp with disbelief. Yes, Commander. The explosion came from devices they carried. But we cannot identify the technology they used. Chris Parker crouched behind a rock. Formation 2 miles from the crater. He was a big man with a thick beard and calm eyes. He had been a demolitions expert in the Army for 15 years before joining the Resistance. But the device he had just used was nothing like Army explosives. Nice work, Chris, came Sam Rodriguez's voice through his earpiece. That got their attention. Chris looked at the small device in his hand. It was no bigger than a cell phone, but it had just released more energy than a nuclear bomb. The technology inside was beyond anything the public knew existed. Target eliminated, Chris reported, moving to extraction point. At the Zephyrian command ship, Admiral Crickstall studied. the reports with growing concern. This was the fourth major attack in 2 weeks. Each time, small groups of humans had used weapons that should not exist on this primitive world. "Show me the weapon analysis again," Crystal ordered. The display showed microscopic traces left by the explosions. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. These were not chemical explosives or nuclear fission. The humans were using some kind of matter converter technology. "This is impossible," Crystal said. "Our initial scans showed these humans barely understand nuclear fusion. How do they have matter conversion weapons?" In her underground laboratory, Dr. Mary Collins smiled as she watched the alien response to the attacks. The Zephyrians were finally starting to question their assumptions about human technology. "Phase 3 is ready," she told her assistant, Dr. Bob Carter. "The orbital platforms are coming online." "What about the aliens' detection systems?" Bob asked. "They still think our satellites are primitive communication devices. They have no idea what they're really looking at." Mary pulled up a display showing Earth's orbit. The screen showed dozens of objects that looked like simple metal boxes drifting in space. To alien scanners, they appeared to be old satellites or space junk. But Mary knew better. "Activate Platform 7, she ordered. High above Earth, one of the old satellites suddenly came to life. Panels opened along its sides, revealing weapons that gleamed with blue energy. The platform was the size of a school bus, but it carried enough firepower to destroy a city. The Zephyrian patrol ship flying below never saw it coming. A beam of pure energy struck the alien vessel, cutting through its shields like they were made of paper. The ship spun out of control and crashed into the ocean. On the command ship, alarms started screaming. Commander Velthara ran to her station. As reports flooded in, "We've lost Patrol Ship 14, her communications officer reported. "Energy weapon attack from orbit. From orbit." "That's impossible. These humans have no orbital weapons." "The attack came from grid reference 247. Our scans show an old communication satellite in that area." Velthara pulled up the scanning data. The object looked like a simple metal box with solar panels. It had been there for years, ignored by everyone. "Scan it again." Full intensity. The new scan revealed the truth. The satellite was not made of simple metal. It contained technology more advanced than anything on Zephyrian ships. Energy cores, targeting systems, weapons that used principles the aliens barely understood. "Admiral," Velthara called urgently, "you need to see this." Admiral Crystal studied the scan results with growing alarm. "How many more of these are there?" "We're scanning now, Admiral. The initial count is ... troubling." The screen filled with red markers. 50 objects in orbit around Earth. All of them had been classified as harmless space debris. All of them were actually weapons platforms more advanced than Zephyrian technology. "We've been deceived," Crystal said quietly. "These humans are not primitive." General Dan Brooks stood in the Pentagon's deepest basement, 5 levels below what most people knew existed. The room around him looked like something from a science fiction movie. Holographic displays showed the positions of every Zephyrian ship and base on Earth. "All platforms are now active, General," reported his aide, Colonel Lisa Park. "We have complete orbital coverage." "Good. What about ground operations?" "Resistance teams have eliminated 17 alien patrols and destroyed 6 supply depots. The aliens are starting to increase security, but they still don't understand what they're facing." General Brooks nodded. He was a tough man who had spent his career preparing for this day. Not preparing for an alien invasion, but preparing for the day humanity would have to reveal its true capabilities. "Begin Phase 4, he ordered. "It's time to show them what Earth can really do." Commander Alex Turner received the order in her Mountain Command Center. She turned to her staff with a grim smile. "All units, this is command. Authorization code Alpha 77. Begin full deployment." Across the solar system, things that had looked like asteroids suddenly came to life. Massive ships, each one larger than a Zephyrian vessel, powered up their engines and began moving toward Earth. They had been waiting in the asteroid belt for 50 years, disguised as space rocks. The first ship to reveal itself was the USS Liberty. It was 4 miles long and bristled with weapons that made alien technology look like toys. Its hull was made of a metal that could absorb enemy fire and redirect it back at attackers. Captain Su Chun stood on the Liberty's bridge, watching Earth grow larger on her screen. She had been born on this ship and had never set foot on Earth's surface. Her parents and grandparents had lived their entire lives waiting for this moment. "All stations report ready, Captain," her first officer announced. "Good, signal the fleet. Time to go home." On Earth, Dr. Mary Collins activated the final surprise. Hidden bases under major cities began opening. What looked like subway tunnels suddenly revealed themselves to be launch tubes. Fighters that seemed impossible for Earth technology rose into the sky. The aircraft looked like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. They moved without wings, powered by engines that bent gravity itself. They could stop in midair, turn instantly, and accelerate faster than alien sensors could track. Admiral Crickstall watched his world turn upside down. The primitive planet he thought he had conquered was revealing weapons and ships that surpassed everything the Zephyrian Empire had built in 1,000 years. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence was perfect. We studied this world for months." They had simple rockets and crude satellites. "Admiral," his communications officer called urgently, "we're receiving a transmission from the human resistance. They want to talk." On the main screen, Sam Rodriguez appeared. But he was not the simple human guerrilla fighter the aliens expected. He wore a uniform covered with symbols and decorations. It spoke of military service across multiple star systems. "Admiral Crickstall," Sam said calmly. "My name is Colonel Sam Rodriguez, Special Operations Division, Terran Defense Force. I think it's time we had an honest conversation." Crickstall stared at the human. The man's uniform, his bearing, his confidence, this was not a primitive warrior. This was a soldier from an advanced military organization. "Who are you?" Crickstall asked. "What are you?" Sam smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "We're the people you thought you could conquer, and we've been waiting for you to arrive." For a very long time, the truth was starting to become clear. Earth was not a primitive world that had been caught off guard. Earth was a carefully prepared trap, and the Zephyrian Empire had walked right into it. Image description for Leonardo AI: a massive 4-mile-long human warship emerging from an asteroid belt in space, revealing itself after decades of disguise. The ship has a sleek, advanced design far superior to alien technology, with energy weapons glowing along its hull. In the background, other disguised asteroids are also transforming into warships. The scene shows advanced human technology that makes alien ships look primitive, with Earth visible in the distance and alien vessels looking small and outdated in comparison. Admiral Su Chun stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty as her massive ship dropped out of hyperspace. Earth hung before them like a blue jewel, but it was surrounded by enemy vessels. She had been waiting her entire life for this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun," she spoke into her communications system. "Operation Homecoming is now active. Show them what humanity can really do." Behind the Liberty, dozens of other human ships appeared from hyperspace. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything the Zephyrians possessed. The human fleet had been hiding in distant star systems for decades, waiting for this signal. On Earth, Admiral Crickstall watched his sensors with growing horror. The primitive world he thought he had conquered was suddenly surrounded by a fleet that dwarfed his own forces. Each human ship was 4 times the size of his largest vessel. "This is impossible," Crickstall said for the 100th time that day. "Where did these ships come from?" "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "we're detecting energy readings unlike anything in our databases. These human ships are using technology we don't understand." The first human ship opened fire. A beam of pure white energy struck a Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship's shields, which had never failed in 1,000 battles, simply vanished. The cruiser broke apart like it was made of glass. "All ships, return fire!" Crickstall ordered desperately. The Zephyrian fleet fired everything they had at The human vessels. Red energy beams and missile swarms filled the space around Earth, but when the attack reached the human ships, something incredible happened. The weapons simply stopped in midair, held by invisible shields. Energy absorption. At 90%, reported Commander Lisa Park from the Liberty's weapons station. Redirecting power to main guns. The human ships turned the Zephyrian attacks back on them. The aliens found themselves being destroyed by their own weapons. It was like fighting an enemy made of mirrors. On the ground, Major Matt Stevens led his forces out of their hidden bases. Matt was a soldier who had trained for 20 years for this moment. His men wore armor that looked like liquid metal and carried weapons that hummed with contained energy. "All units, weapons free," Matt ordered into his radio. "Time to take our planet back." The Zephyrian base in New York never had a chance. Human soldiers appeared from nowhere, moving faster than the aliens could react. Their weapons cut through Zephyrian armor like it was made of paper. Energy shields that had protected alien warriors for centuries were useless against human technology. Commander Velthara tried to coordinate the defense from her command center. The reports of defeat came from every base around the planet. Her forces were not just losing, they were being completely destroyed by humans using impossible technology. "How are they moving so fast?" she demanded. "Unknown, Commander. Their soldiers appear to be using some kind of gravity manipulation. Our weapons cannot track targets moving at those speeds." Captain Jill Morgan led her special operations team through the ventilation system of the main Zephyrian command ship. Jill was small and quick, with skills that made her invisible to enemy sensors. Her team moved through the alien ship like ghosts. "Target the command center," Jill whispered to her team. "We need their command codes and ship databases." The aliens had no idea humans were inside their flagship. Their security systems were designed to detect other Zephyrian technology, not the advanced stealth equipment that Jill's team used. "In position," reported Sergeant Tim Brooks, "ready to breach." "Go!" The human team burst into the alien command center like lightning. Zephyrian officers reached for their weapons, but the humans moved too fast. Stun weapons dropped the aliens to the floor before they could raise their guns. Jill connected a small device to the main computer. Information flowed into the device faster than any Zephyrian system could process. Ship designs, military codes, even biological data about the alien species, everything was copied in seconds. Data retrieved. Jill reported, "These aliens are not as advanced as they think they are." Admiral Crickstall found himself trapped on his own ship as human forces took control of deck after deck. His warriors, who had conquered 23 worlds, were being defeated by humans wearing armor that seemed to make them invincible. "Admiral," his communications officer called urgently, "the human leader wants to speak with you." President Carter appeared on the main screen, but she was no longer the defeated leader who had surrendered days before. She wore a military uniform, covered with symbols that spoke of authority across multiple star systems. "Admiral Crickstall," President Carter said calmly, "I am President Carter of the Terran Federation. I think it's time you learned the truth about who you decided to attack." "You said you were primitive," Crickstall said weakly. "Your technology was basic." "We scanned your world for months," President Carter smiled. "You scanned exactly what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that could hide technology like this would be caught off guard by your arrival on the Liberty's bridge?" Admiral Chun watched the battle reports coming in from around the solar system. Every Zephyrian ship was either destroyed or captured. Every alien base on Earth had surrendered. The invasion was over, and humanity had won without losing a single ship. "Admiral," reported her intelligence officer, Commander Kevin Walsh, "we've downloaded their complete database. The information confirms what we suspected, which is they've encountered 17 other species in this galaxy. All of them had technology similar to what we pretended to have. The Zephyrians have never faced an opponent with our actual capabilities." Dr. Mary Collins studied the captured alien technology in her laboratory. What she found made her laugh. The Zephyrians thought they were advanced, but their best weapons were based on principles. humanity had mastered 50 years ago. It's almost sad, she told Dr. Bob Carter. They're still using particle beam weapons. We moved beyond that technology decades ago. What about their ships? Bob asked. Impressive by the standards of most species, I suppose. But compared to our fleet? They're like wooden sailing ships trying to fight aircraft carriers. Sam Rodriguez stood in the main Zephyrian base in Washington, D.C., now under human control. Alien prisoners sat with their hands behind their heads, guarded by human soldiers whose technology made the aliens look like children playing with toys. The sweep is complete, Sam reported to command. All alien forces have been neutralized. 0 human casualties. In space, the captured Zephyrian ships were being studied by human engineers. What they found was exactly what they expected: technology. That was advanced by galactic standards, but primitive compared to what humanity had developed in secret. Admiral Krickstall sat in a holding cell aboard the Liberty, trying to understand what had happened. His empire had conquered worlds across the galaxy. His technology was the most advanced known to exist. How had these humans made his forces look like amateurs? Captain Jill Morgan entered his cell carrying a datapad. Admiral, we've been monitoring your species for longer than you might think. We know about every world you've conquered. We know about every ship in your fleet. We know about technologies you haven't even invented yet. How? Krickstall asked. How did you know we were coming? Jill sat down across from him. Because, Admiral, this isn't the first time we've dealt with species like yours. Earth isn't our first world, it's our backup plan. Krickstall stared at her. What do you mean? I mean, Jill said quietly, that you didn't discover a primitive world. You discovered the hidden fortress of a civilization that has been fighting wars across multiple galaxies for thousands of years. And tomorrow you're going to meet our real fleet. The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. If this was just their backup plan, what was their real military like? Admiral Chun received a message on her command screen. She read it and smiled. Then she activated the ship's communication system. Attention all ships. We have just received confirmation the home fleet is on its way. Estimated arrival time, 18 hours. The liberation of Earth was complete. But as the humans had just told their prisoners, this was only the beginning. The real human military was coming home. And the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of. Image description for Leonardo AI. Massive space battle around Earth showing enormous human warships 4 times larger than alien vessels, firing white energy beams that disintegrate alien ships instantly. Human ships have sleek, advanced designs with energy shields deflecting all alien attacks. In the foreground, alien ships are breaking apart while human vessels remain undamaged, demonstrating the complete technological superiority of the hidden human fleet. Earth glows blue in the background as the one-sided battle unfolds in space. Admiral Krickstall sat in the holding cell aboard the USS Liberty, his purple skin pale with shock. The defeat of his entire fleet had taken less than 6 hours. 6 hours to destroy an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Captain. Jill Morgan entered the cell again, but this time she was not alone. President Carter walked beside her, along with Admiral Chun and several other humans wearing uniforms that seemed to shimmer with embedded technology. Admiral, President Carter said as she sat down across from him, you asked how we knew you were coming. It's time you learned the truth about who we really are. Krickstall looked up at her with defeated eyes. You said Earth was not your first world. What did you mean? President Carter activated a small device. The air above the table filled with a holographic star map showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked the worlds of the Zephyrian Empire. But there were other markings too, blue dots scattered across distant regions of space. This galaxy is not our home, Admiral, President Carter began. Humanity comes from a place much farther away. We came here 50,000 years ago, running from a war that destroyed our original civilization. The hologram changed, showing a different galaxy entirely. It was filled with the ruins of massive structures and dead worlds. Whatever had happened. There, it had been total and complete destruction. Our ancestors fought an enemy we call the Void Hunters, Admiral Chun continued. They were ancient beings who consumed entire civilizations. They destroyed worlds not for conquest, but for the pure joy of ending life. Crickstyle stared at the images. You fled from your home galaxy? We didn't just flee, Captain Jill said. We planned. Our leaders knew the Void Hunters would eventually find us, no matter where we hid, so we prepared. The hologram shifted back to their current galaxy, but now it showed the true scope of human presence. Blue dots appeared on hundreds of worlds, connected by lines that showed a vast network spanning multiple star systems. Earth was never meant to be our only world, President Carter explained. It was designed to be our fallback position, a place where we could hide while maintaining the appearance of a young, primitive civilization. Commander Luke Anderson entered the room carrying a datapad. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Admiral, we've been monitoring your empire for 300 years. We knew about every world you conquered, every ship you built, every weapon you developed. But why? Crickstall asked. Why hide from us? Why not just destroy us when we first entered this galaxy? Admiral Chun smiled sadly. Because you're not our enemy, Admiral. You're like children playing with toys compared to what's really out there. We've been using species like yours as early warning systems. The hologram changed again, showing long-range sensor data from the edge of the galaxy. Dark shapes moved in the void between stars, heading toward their galaxy at incredible speeds. The Void Hunters have found us, President Carter said quietly. They're coming. And when they arrive, every living being in this galaxy will need to fight together or die separately. Dr. Tara Wilson entered the room. She was an elderly woman with white hair and kind eyes, but she wore the uniform of a fleet admiral. We've been preparing for this day for 50,000 years. Earth's primitive technology was carefully designed to hide our real capabilities while we built the weapons we'll need. She activated another hologram showing massive shipyards hidden in distant star systems. Ships larger than anything the Zephyrians had ever imagined were under construction, each one designed to fight enemies that could destroy entire solar systems. Every human colony has been working toward this moment, Dr. Wilson continued. We've developed technologies that make your empire's best weapons look like stone knives. But even with all our preparation, we'll need every ally we can find. Crickstall looked around the room at these humans who had just destroyed his entire understanding of the galaxy. What are you asking of me? We're offering you a choice, President Carter said. Join us as allies against the Void Hunters, or try to face them alone when they arrive. But understand, if you choose to stand alone, your empire will last approximately 48 hours against them. The hologram showed recordings of previous Void Hunter attacks. Crickstall watched in horror as entire fleets were consumed by creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. Planets were drained of all life in minutes. Star systems went dark as the hunters moved through them like a plague. How long do we have? Crickstall asked quietly. Admiral Chun checked her datapad. Our deep space monitors detect their scout ships will arrive in approximately 2 years. Their main force will be here within 5 years. Suddenly alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Commander Kevin Walsh's voice came over the communication system. Admiral Chun to the bridge immediately. We have massive hyperspace signatures incoming. The group rushed to the Liberty's bridge. The main screen showed space around Earth, but something incredible was happening. Points of light were appearing everywhere, growing larger by the second. Sir, reported the sensor officer, we have over 300 ships dropping out of hyperspace. They single quotes re-da. They're massive. Admiral Chun smiled for the first time in days. That's the home fleet. They got our signal. The ships that appeared made even the Liberty look small. Each one was 10 miles long and covered with weapons that seemed to bend space. Around them, they moved in perfect formation like a school of metal fish swimming through the void. Admiral Crickstall, President Carter said, meet the real human military. The largest ship in the formation was clearly the flagship. It was 20 miles long and looked like it had been built to fight gods. Energy cascaded along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "That's the UES Titan," Admiral Chun said with pride, "flagship of the Terran Federation. It carries enough firepower to crack a planet in half." A new voice came over the communication system, deep and powerful. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Stone of the Terran Federation Home Fleet. Good work, Earth Defense Force, we're home." On the main screen, Admiral Stone appeared. He was an old man with steel-gray hair and scars that spoke of battles across multiple galaxies. His uniform carried decorations from wars that Crixtel had never heard of. "Admiral Chun," Stone said, "status report. All objectives completed, sir. Earth is secure. Local resistance eliminated. We have prisoners who need to make a decision about their future." Admiral Stone looked directly at Crixtel through the screen. "Admiral of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Fleet Admiral Stone. I've been fighting the Void Hunters for longer than your species has had spaceflight. You have a choice to make." Crixtel looked around the bridge at these humans, who had just revealed themselves to be one of the most advanced civilizations in galactic history. His empire, which he had thought was mighty, was nothing compared to what he was seeing. What would alliance with humanity mean? Crixtel asked. "It means survival," Admiral Stone replied. "Your technology will be upgraded. Your worlds will be defended. Your people will live to see tomorrow when the hunters arrive." President Carter placed a hand on Crixtel's shoulder. "We're not conquerors, Admiral. We're survivors. And we've learned that survival requires cooperation." Crixtel looked at the massive human fleet on the screen. Ships that could fight beings capable of destroying galaxies. An alliance that might actually have a chance against the ancient enemy. "I accept," Crixtel said. "The Zephyrian Empire will stand with humanity against the Void Hunters." "Admiral." Stone nodded approvingly. "Welcome to the war, Admiral. Let's get your people ready. The real fight is just beginning." Image description for Leonardo AI. A massive space scene showing hundreds of enormous human warships emerging from hyperspace around Earth. Each ship 10 to 20 miles long with energy weapons that bend space-time itself. The flagship UES Titan dominates the scene as a 20-mile-long vessel crackling with godlike power. In the foreground, smaller Zephyrian ships look like toys compared to humanity's true galactic fleet, while Earth glows peacefully in the background, revealing it was always just humanity's hidden fortress world.